Turning subtitles on? What? Okay. Subtitles are off. That's perfect. So, hello everyone. Welcome to the Curiosity Complex. Welcome back. If you're a regular listener, welcome to any new listeners. Today's episode is a new one for me. I've already done an unscripted episode with Kurt. If you haven't checked that out yet, definitely go and do. It's really funny. This one, I'm hoping is going to be. It's a similar kind of vein. It's unscripted completely, but with Kurt, we had kind of some general topics we wanted to touch on, but no specific questions. With this, I don't even really have any general topics that we can touch on. We're going to touch on a lot, hopefully, but in terms of planning it, I've done zero. So that's going to be really fun, a new experience at least. Just a few admin things from me. The Facebook page is going really well. Thank you to everyone new that's liked it. That's been fantastic. Instagram is kind of slowed a lot because I've barely used it, to be fair. I just post things, never really interact with anyone on there. So if you're not following me on Instagram, feel free to do so. I'd love that. Finally, I'm getting onto YouTube, so that's really cool. I've got one video up there currently. I'm hoping to add more. So if you like watching YouTube videos, etc., etc., it's not a video. It's just me talking. Not my face, luckily for you. But it's just a podcast. But yeah, feel free to subscribe on YouTube too. Yeah, without further ado, I'll let my guest introduce himself, and we can just see where this conversation takes us.
Is that me?
Yes.
Right. Hi, I'm Pete Aiken. I'm 21. I'm a history graduate from Bangor Uni, and I'm currently doing a Masters in War Studies in Glasgow.
Okay, cool. So, yeah, you've already mentioned. We know each other through Bangor University. We played American football together. So you did history for your undergrad.
Yeah, I did.
What was the motivation behind doing a degree like that?
Oh, that's a weird one. I went through. I always quite liked history from like a really young age.
Yeah.
Like it was one of the ones where I remember I used to be in primary school, and there was a teacher I had who always insisted that I'd end up becoming a history teacher. That's always a nice thing to hear when you're like 8 years old. Like that was going to peak of your life was a history teacher.
High hopes.
Yeah, I was like, thank you for setting that bar so high for me. And then I was doing A levels, and I found myself more drawn to like arts and humanities because I took English, history, physics, and chemistry, and I hated physics and chemistry.
Same.
But really enjoyed English and history, so I was like, I think I'll do a degree in that. And obviously, I'd started at Bangor, and it was absolutely class, like great fun. Just because you learned so much, and it wasn't just the topics you were learning; it was like the structure and style as well.
Yeah.
Like it was quite, you got free reign to do what you wanted, rather than it being like quite a restrictive course. So you could pick like a wide spread of topics, and you've got like transferable skills.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Okay, so my experiences of history are very different to yours. I absolutely hated history with a passion, and it was mainly because the teacher, I didn't like the teacher at all, but also because the amount of essays you had to write. And I always associate history with essays. Is that the case at university level?
Undergrad, yes. My postgrad, nah. For my undergrad, it was about you had like maybe a 2,500 word essay and an exam, and that was sort of how your 20 credit module was split. So you had like roughly an essay per module, but that's like not horrific. Like I know people who did like zoology and stuff who probably had about the equivalent, maybe slightly shorter, but not by much. But I think it's because like I remember I once went on like a date with a girl way back when I was one of those single guys, and I was and I can't remember how it came up. We were talking about history, and she was like, I think I asked her if she knew who Napoleon was. It was contextually relevant, and she had absolutely no. Yeah, I'm not. These are the sorts of dates I end up on where like Napoleon gets brought up, and it's like, yeah, that's been a good date. I don't normally get a second. But it was like, she was like, I hated my teacher, so I dropped it in year 9, which seems to be like what a lot of people have, which is if you have like a bad history teacher, you just don't enjoy it.
Yeah. Mm.
It's the same for most things though. Like if you have a bad teacher, you're not going to enjoy it.
Yeah, I guess true. Okay, so yeah, that's a good enough reason to do anything really. You just enjoyed history, so you did a degree in it. Fair enough. In terms of your future career prospects, we just mentioned that history teacher is 100% on the cards. But what other jobs do people that get history degrees kind of go into?
This was an interesting one. You find a lot of people who've done like history and geography who will take law conversions.
Oh, okay.
Um, I know a few people from my undergrad who've gone on to do law conversions. Um, I know quite a few of them are doing PGCs. Some of them are there's a whole group of them from my history course that are still doing them at Bangor, and then some of us have gone on to do masters and are looking at PhDs as well.
Yeah.
See, like it's not, if you take history, it's not the be all and end all of life. Like you're not doomed to be a history teacher. You've got like quite a wide spread of options that you can do.
Yeah. Yeah. Whereas for me, doing a master's in sports psychology is, that's what I'm doing, and that's that sort of thing. There's not that much, or people at least don't see much transference. I don't think. Okay, cool. So, kind of a lecturer. What kind of job is a historian? Do you guys look at like? Do you know what's a
Uh,
historian?
I mean, historians are weird because they've just somehow.
They're just weird people, or
No, you get some that are really nice, like Al Murray. Al Murray does a podcast with a historian that I quite like,
oh
called
yeah,
James Holland. And the pair of them, they have podcasts very similar to yours. They just sort of sit down and they talk, and they just talk about history, and
yeah,
it's like that's all they do. But I've never understood how historians make a living because how many times can you write a book on World War Two?
yeah,
I've never
exactly.
understood how it works. I don't get it. Um,
Yeah,
like I know my favourite's James Holland because he's done loads of picture books. He's done history picture books, which are like really like it's like you remember like the old Ladybird books you had when you were a kid.
yeah.
Yeah, the Ladybird adult books.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's done them. And
Interesting concept.
yeah, it's quite weird. It's just like making history more accessible. That seems to be what historians do. It's just a shame that they're all 70 and grumpy.
Yeah. Well, that's what you got to look forward to. But you're buzzing for that.
I cannot wait for me to say.
Okay. All right. So, you now do a course which is amazingly named War Studies, which kind of makes it sound like you're studying to go to war. But I guess it's not that. Can you tell us a bit more about your masters?
My master's really strange actually. It's been around in Glasgow for a few years, but they changed the structure of it this year. But we study like the strategy and the aftermath of certain conflicts. So some of them you'll never have heard of. Like there's the Battle of Hattin, which is in 1187 or 89, one or the other, which I'd never heard of until I started the course. And then there's some like the Battle of France in 1940. But so far we are studying the tactics that have been used by individuals, and just generally debate that. And then you look at the remembrance. So, for example, we've got some lecturers who worked on finding graves in France, First World War graves in France, Australian soldier graves in France,
Oh,
and
cool.
they were the part of it was GARD, which is Glasgow Uni's archaeological research division, I think, and they went out to find these graves of soldiers who they knew roughly where they were using like aerial reconnaissance and stuff,
Yeah.
and they went up and dug them up. And so it's like touching on the battle itself and how that shapes history, and then the aftermath and how these battles are remembered. And
Yeah. Okay.
that's what we're doing at the moment, which is actually really quite. It's not something you'd really think about, um, but it like when you actually start to think about it, you realize just how influential time can be on the topic.
Yeah. Okay. That sounds like a loaded answer. What kind of things are you thinking about?
Well, the best one is, have you ever heard of the Battle of Yorktown?
Um, I'm gonna no. I'm gonna go with no.
Right. So Yorktown is like a massive battle in the American War of Independence,
Okay.
and America, well, the East Coast of America celebrates this every single year, and I probably couldn't count 5 people that had heard of Yorktown. Like I'd never heard of Yorktown before I even started my masters. I had no idea, but apparently it's one of the biggest battles of the American War of Independence. And it's like, why do like every American knows the name, but no one that's British knows the name?
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably because we went back in 1812 and won, but like it's how looking at how people have twisted history to benefit themselves or like try to forget it.
Yeah. I mean, there's a famous thing people often say, history is often written by the winners, etc. Stuff like that. I guess that's pretty true. Because if
Yeah.
you lost, you're probably dead. So that would suck.
That's one of my favorite ones actually, which is you always kind of wonder what the other side would say if they won. Churchill was famous for it. He was always like, I always had faith, and you read his memoirs, and it's you definitely did not have faith.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was one where it's like he was like, I had Britain and France are going to fight the Germans together in the Second World War, and then he speaks with the French Prime Minister. The French Prime Minister's like, yeah, we've lost the war, and Churchill goes back to London and says, can you find out if we can win this war without the French, please? But still telling the French that he was going to help, and it was like, I don't know if you're allowed to do that. Like that seems a little bit questionable.
Kind of shady.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's so funny. Okay, cool. Well, that sounds even cooler than the actual what I thought it was, at least.
Well, yeah.
So, if you could pick one person from history, like your favorite person from history, who would it be?
Ooh. That's. I think if there's one person, but it's more because of his reputation than anything else. But also, it's definitely not going to be my favorite person because of the context. Which is
Okay.
yeah, just hear me out on this one.
Okay.
There was a German general in the Second World War called Erwin Rommel, and he's been like, if you ask any military historian, a lot of them will just be like, Rommel's an absolute legend. So he basically comes across as a really nice guy and a really great tank commander and just like a general badass. And like I'm kind of curious to know if that's genuinely how it was. Like history seems to have put him on a nice little pedestal, and it's like I'd like to know if that was what he was actually like.
Yeah.
I think that's what I'd go with.
Okay, cool. That's really interesting. I had a feeling you'd go with someone German just for the controversy.
It's not controversy.
Okay, so I like that point there in terms of what would he be like in like real life. So what kind of questions would you ask him if he was able to meet you for like a 15-minute chat?
I don't know. Just like, because it's a difficult one because you never really know what you'd say until you're actually there.
True.
It's like you have an argument with yourself in the shower and you plan out exactly what the person's going to say and the exact response you give, and then when you're actually there, it goes to pot and you're like, this didn't go to pot. Like I don't know, like I don't think I'd have any like individual questions for him. I think I just want to see what he was actually like.
Yeah. Okay.
Like you get some people who have reputations for like hard drivers and stuff, and then you always just kind of want to know if they actually were.
Yeah.
So I think it's less about his
Yeah,
personal opinions, more about his like personality.
Okay, cool. That's interesting. I like that. I like the sound of your course. It sounds good.
Yeah, it's interesting. The people on it are really interesting as well. Like we have such a diverse group. It's honestly really strange.
That's you gotta love course mates. They're always interesting.
Well, it's my course is like a 50-50 split of people older than 30 and people younger than 30.
Oh, that's cool.
So there's like 7 of us who are under the age of 30, and then there's like 8 of them that are between like 30 and 55.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. Not that many then.
No, there's only 15 of us, which is apparently bigger than usual. But
Really?
yeah, but it's almost a 50-50 split, males to females as well.
Oh yeah.
which is quite unusual because you wouldn't stereotypically expect to have women on the course, but the ones that are on the course are incredible. Like, they are some of the brightest historians I've ever met, actually.
Yeah. So do you class yourself as a historian?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to class myself as a historian now.
Otherwise, you're just nothing.
Yeah, otherwise I just sort of say thank you for that now. Otherwise, it's like that football player that occasionally goes to lectures.
That was funny. Okay, so cool. Yeah, so you went to Glasgow for the Masters. What was the attraction of Glasgow?
The stocks of Iron Brew, obviously. That's what you really need. Who
Yeah.
cares about an education when you can get tinnies at like £4 a dozen?
Yeah.
No, it was I went to one of my lecturers in Bangor, and because I needed him to do a reference for me, and he was like, "What is it you're interested in doing?" I was like, "I'd like to do like a military history thing." And he turned around and he was like, "There's 3 places you should go." He was like, "There's Kings in London, there's Glasgow," and he was like, "The third option, which you probably don't want to do, is Sandhurst. Obviously, you have to join the army for Sandhurst."
Yeah.
So he was like, "Take a look at these," and he was like, "Birmingham's also quite good." And then I know Glasgow quite well anyway, because obviously my family's from there. And I didn't want to live in London, because obviously Masters funding is an absolute nightmare. So I was like, I'll just take the option in Scotland, go with all the nice people who talk on the trains, and see how it goes.
Yeah.
Plus, I think it was one of the best ranked unis, and its course was the most appealing to me.
Okay, that's good.
It made a big difference, because for my undergrad, I came through in clearing, which meant it was obviously just apply to wherever it will take you. And then for my postgrad, it was quite strange having the ability to pick and choose where I went, because like it's quite a strange feeling going from sort of not getting a choice to where you go to being like, no, I don't want to do that course, and turning places down rather than having to find someone to accept you.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, cool. Okay. So how has it been transitioning from 3 years at Bangor to just a singular year in Glasgow?
It's actually been really quite strange. Like, I went back, and it was like doing first year all over again.
Yeah.
So you had to be nice to your flatmates. And you had to be nice to your well, I mean, I don't speak to my flatmates. I've got the perfect flat. It's incredible. We all just sort of acknowledge each other in the corridor, and that's that, and it's stunning.
Stunning.
It's absolutely stunning. But it's like going back to first year, where you've got to come in and make new friends, and then there are some people I know in Glasgow that I'd say probably would. I don't know anyone. They're not as close as the guys in Bangor, but I get along with them quite well. And obviously joining the football team as well was a big help in that situation, because I forgot how hard it was to make new friends.
Yeah.
Especially when you're me.
Like, yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you don't know Pete personally, that's going to be a difficult statement to comprehend, but...
If you know me, you'll understand.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So what have been, like, the hardest things you've had to deal with transitioning from one uni to the other?
Well, the hardest thing I think about moving to Scotland was you can't buy booze after 10 o'clock in a shop. That's just... I'm not okay with that.
Wow.
Yeah, it's honestly disgraceful. I object. But it's like getting used to different styles of teaching, and not being like, obviously when you get really close friends, you can sort of say what you want, sort of thing. So you can make outlandish comments and it's not weird or something. But then obviously you go from 3 years of being able to be obnoxious to go into a year where you have to make friends with people and try and not come across as, a bit of a jackass.
Yeah.
So it's like a shift in lifestyle in a sense, because you go from living in like a group of 8 people and being able to just go and sit in someone's room, or just like send spoons to a group chat and everyone goes to the pub, to I'm a lot more independent in Glasgow, purely because a lot of the people I live in halls with are obviously doing masters as well, so they're all really busy. And then I'm not good enough friends with people on like the football team to be like just walking into their houses sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that's the one thing about Glasgow that is different to Bangor, is that obviously people lock their doors in Glasgow.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's a
It's
good
not
point.
like you because you used to be able to walk into Poplars at any time of the day and the door was open.
Yeah, we literally come home from nights out and have walked into your house and like no one's been around. It's just been totally open.
Well, there was the one where Hayden managed to host afters in our kitchen without asking anyone. He just came in and did it, and and no one understood why.
Oh, that's so funny.
Like it took us like 6 weeks to figure out that Hayden had just done it himself.
Yeah, yeah. They frequently used your toilet facilities as well.
Yeah, that was a weird one. I came down the stairs at like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I'd just gotten out of bed, and Lockie was in my toilet, and I was like, "Oh, hi, Lockie. How's it going?" He was like, "Sorry, I was enough banger and needed the can." I was like, "All right, fine.
Decent.
Make sure you
Yeah.
wash your hands."
Yeah. I mean, Glasgow must be bigger than Bangor by quite a bit as well. So I
Oh,
guess it's different in that way as well.
it is insane. There are more students at Glasgow Uni than there are in Bangor, and I think there's about 10,000 more students at Glasgow Uni.
Wow.
And obviously there are three. Well, there's technically three universities in Glasgow. There's West of Scotland, which is down in Paisley Way, so just outside of Glasgow. But then you've got Strathclyde and Caledonian,
Yeah.
towards the east end. So it's jam packed, but it's not the size. It's just like the little things that you don't really clock that you're missing. Like you can get McDonald's delivered.
Oh,
This
sick.
There are Taco Bells. I've never had a Taco Bell, and I went to Glasgow and had a Taco Bell. Yeah, and it's like what was it? I was really hungry at like 10:30, so I got me a Wagamama's delivered to my house.
There
I
was
was
Mamas for like 100 miles near Bangor.
Yeah, well, the closest chain restaurant I can think of to Bangor that's not like a fast food one is a Pizza Hut in Clondudno. So that's 20 miles away.
Yeah.
The nearest Nando's is what, St Asps,
That's
or
in Broughton near Chester.
yeah, so it's about 50 odd miles.
Yeah.
And then we have the SU there are two SU bars that I know of in Glasgow, and I've been told at Glasgow Uni, I've been told there's a third, but one of them has a Subway in it.
No way.
Yep,
That's sick.
there's a Subway in it. So you've got the union debating rooms, because it's just like a really old union. You've got the billiards room on the top floor, and it's like on floor 3 there's a Subway.
Jesus. I can't imagine being like the president or something of such a big uni. That'd be ridiculous.
Yeah, I've never like it's one of those ones where, like obviously in Bangor you're used to running around and bumping into your presidents. I don't know how many times I've sat in Ruth Blant's office with a hangover because we were just friends like that. Whereas you wouldn't catch anyone doing that in Glasgow. I can't imagine being like besties with the SU president. I don't think I've ever met someone from.
Do you know who the SU president is?
Nope, couldn't tell you. I
Oh,
know.
that's madness.
I know of the sports president
Yeah,
because I think I've seen a video of him once.
once.
Although,
Okay.
actually, the worst one I ever had was there's a girl on the posters for Glasgow Uni Sport. She's like a lovely lass with like curly hair, and I think I was on a night out with the football team, and I saw her, and I tapped someone on the shoulder and was like, "It's the girl from the posters." This is just like I went up to this random girl and was just like, "Oh my god, you're the girl from the Glasgow Uni Sport posters," and she was like, "Yeah, I am a student here. Like, it's fine."
So he's being really creepy then.
I feel like, in hindsight, having just said that, yeah, it seems quite weird. But at the time, it wasn't. Like, we were all having a nice little giggle about it. It was fine. And
Yeah.
she was fine with it, because it was in a house party and we were all completely sober because it would be irresponsible to not be.
I mean, yeah. Underage drinking is a real big problem.
Oh, God, underage drinking must be an absolute nightmare in Glasgow.
Well, do you not know about it?
No, I've got nothing to do with that sort of thing. But I know there's one lad I know who boasts about going to all these clubs because to go into the student union bar in Glasgow, which is Hive, which is open on Thursdays, you don't need like a driver's license to get in. You have to have a student card.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
You can go to uni in Scotland from 16 or 17.
Oh.
So they don't check the age. They just check you've got a student card, and that's that. So this lad who's 17 has been going into Hive like every Thursday, and no one's saying anything. So he's getting absolutely steaming. and because he's not being driving license ID, he's just got to check they've got a student card.
Yeah. That's crazy.
That's why I try and avoid going to Hive just because it feels a bit odd.
Yeah. No, I had that. I had that in my master's year. To be fair, like in Bangor, going out in Bangor in my master's year, I was just like, some of these freshers literally look like 12-year-olds. It's ridiculous.
Oh yeah, it was horrible.
Yeah.
And yeah, no, I know what you mean. Like, because I've obviously come back to visit a couple times, and I've been in. Well, Cheese is always the greatest night ever. Long live Cheese. But like, sometimes you're there on Wednesday nights, and it's like absolutely rammed, and like you're just a bit like, I'm not quite sure. Like, you sort of walk around, and it's like there are some people in here that you'd ID.
Yeah. It's crazy, but they all get ID'd at the door though, so they must be. That's the problem. They look so young, but they're allowed in, so they must be 18 or whatever.
Actually, that was the worst experience of my life. Was last night at Cheese because he didn't ID me. He just went, "Oh yeah, I know who you are," and you go. And I was like, now I have been here too long.
No, I it's one of those. I'm ashamed to admit. In my, I can't remember which year it is now, but one of the years I was in Bangor, I used to go to the takeaway so much that the guy in there would look at me and just go, "Oh, the usual," and I was like, "That." When he said that, I was like, "You know what? I'm not ever coming back here because that is too far. Like, you can't say that to me in a takeaway shop. That is just too much."
You're not the only person that had that. Will, my housemate, obviously he was on like first name terms with the lads in Bella Bella. I walked in there and I was like, I've been coming here for 3 years, but Will's like best mates with the guys. I was like, oh my god.
That's crazy.
Like the guy, like Will was like 50p short once or something, and the guy was like, don't worry, you can pay it next time you're in. And I was like, I was like, that's customer loyalty. That is.
No. Oh god. But no, to be fair, you can strike up conversations pretty easily and get to know them pretty well. But when like I barely spoke to them every time I went in, I just kind of said what I wanted, waited, paid them, and then took it home. I didn't like actively go and have a conversation. But I feel like if you actually had a conversation, like probably Will did, then they'd get to know you a bit better. But when like it's even worse when you're not trying not to have a conversation, but you just don't have a conversation with them, and he still acts like you're the only customer he ever gets, and it's like, okay, this is probably a step too far.
Yeah. But it's nice to know you're wanted, really, isn't it?
It's all we want in life, isn't it? It's just what motivates us all, really.
Oh, I mean, the football team had that in Uno. If you didn't know the bartenders, you were weird.
Yeah, to be fair. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about the football team in Glasgow then.
Yes.
How? I mean, I was gonna say how different is it to Bangor's team, but everyone listening has no idea. A majority of people listening probably have no idea what Bangor's team was like, so there's no real comparison there. Just kind of give us an overview of what it's like for playing for the football team.
It's honestly a really interesting experience. Obviously coming from like obviously I can only really compare it to Bangor, but I'll try not to. But it's like you turn up and it was like a very friendly atmosphere. The facility is horrible. It's called Garskube or Skube to the lads from there. And it's a 100-yard AstroTurf, so it's a gridiron, but it's on a nasty Astro. Just burns your knees off. But the quality of coaching is like unparalleled. Like we run a normal session for us is split into 30-minute pieces, so it's normally you do a half-hour tackling drill, a half-hour of half-hour tackling drill, a half-hour of special teams, and a half-hour of scrimmage because we have hour-and-a-half sessions, not 2-hour ones.
Okay.
And it's high intensity, but you're never bored. You're always doing something, or you're always taking your mental reps or something. And it's like a higher intensity than other teams I've like played with, but it doesn't feel like it. I think because it's a relaxed atmosphere.
Yeah.
So occasionally there's shouting and yelling from some people, but that's just like it's an encouragement. It's not a reprimand, and everyone's like encouraging you to go and get your reps. Like it's not like you have to fight for reps. It's people will put you in if they want to put you in. Like it's just overall it's actually a really friendly atmosphere. I really quite like it.
Yeah. Okay, cool. How many people are on the squad roughly?
Probably I'm gonna go with about 40.
Oh, so not that many then, even though it's such a big uni.
Yeah, because you have to pay. So,
Okay.
but the way Glasgow's done it, which I think is a bit mad, is you have to buy the uni gym membership before you can buy your team membership. So any person who plays sport for Glasgow Uni is registered at the Stevie, which is the uni gym, which is £125, I
Right.
think. Which it's obviously a really reasonable price, especially for the actual quality of the gym. It's like Platform 81 for anyone who's ever been. It's like that, but significantly bigger and spread over more floors. And there's like
Okay.
a lot of activity halls in it, and you can rent out squash court. Yeah, I play squash now. I'm not very good, but I play squash now.
Okay.
Um, I don't understand the rules, but I can hit it pretty hard. But like you've got that, and then the American football team was £90 for the year,
Okay.
with like a £1.25 admin fee from the uni. So if you had to buy, if you say it's £130 for the gym and £90 for American football, that's £220 right there.
Yeah.
Like it's a big chunk of money, which obviously I viewed it as, because I'm paying £90, I'm more obliged to go than if I'm just getting it free.
Yeah,
Which I
and
think is why,
you've kind of got 40 players that actually want to play. Don't
yeah,
like you don't have people that are just kind of there for the fun because they're not paying that much money for just a bit of a laugh, you know.
yeah. Like it's like a it's less like people being like, oh yeah, I don't need to train. I've not paid for it, and therefore I don't mind losing it. It's people who've been like, the money's never brought up, but it's always one of those. I've always sat there and been like, I've paid £90. I'm gonna play. Like I'm not just gonna half-ass it.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm always gonna be I'm gonna be the greatest second string Glasgow's ever seen.
I
That's
mean,
the
that's a good point because it's different in Bangor. None of the clubs you have to pay for. You have to pay maybe for um your own kit, but other than that, you don't have to pay to join the club in any way. So what system do you think works better? Do you think it's better to have people pay for the to join the club, or or not pay at all to join the club?
ah. I personally think that I think it would work if you could join if you pay to join the club, but you don't have to buy the extra gym membership. I think if it was just £90 for the year, I think that's reasonable because it means that people have some skin in the game.
Yeah,
Because it was like the issue we had when you and I were both on committee, and you had like 100 people turn up to the taster session, and
yeah,
uh,
yeah,
the year before us where you had 100 people turning up for regular training sessions, and there's nothing you can do about that because obviously you can't tell people to go away, and people will keep coming back because they're interested. But I think once you put some skin in the game, you will get people coming back because once you've paid to do something, you're gonna be more obliged to do it, and therefore you're gonna try a lot harder.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I agree. I do agree. Yeah.
Like it's a weird one because I personally am very, I still play very relaxed football. I probably shouldn't say that. Like I'll probably get called out by someone in Glasgow for this. I was like, I'm still relatively relaxed when I play football, even though I've paid £90. But I was like, I feel more obliged to do stuff in Glasgow than I did in Bangor purely because I paid for it now.
Yeah, yeah. It's a good incentive, I suppose.
Yeah, it's as good
Yeah.
as any.
So what about squash? What we're on the whole squash thing?
Um, One of my course mates did actually. Um, as per usual, I had to apologise to them, and she was like, "Oh yeah, it's fine, don't worry. Do you fancy a game of squash?" So I'm in a group chat with, I think it's two PhD students, one of the girls from my course called Kirsty, and myself, and we occasionally go and play squash. Um, just as a bit of fun on Sundays.
Yeah,
I didn't exactly expect. I did. It honestly took me by surprise. I never thought I'd see the day I was playing squash, but it's good fun, and it's nice to be like playing a game and not keeping score.
yeah, yeah. True. Very nice. Yeah. I'm way too competitive for that, but yeah, I can imagine that's lovely.
Well, I thought I was quite competitive, but it's like we were playing, and it's like I will keep the score myself, but I won't be like, haha, I'm winning or haha, I'm losing. I'm more like just having fun.
Yeah, I mean, I had a thing with when I played volleyball in my second year,
God, yeah, I remember that.
um, and when we first trained, when I first started that year, it was really fun, and I was just playing to try and get better at it and have fun with it and like meet new people, etc. But then it turned around and they were like, "Oh, Nat, we're going to put you on the squad for the game on Sunday or whatever on Wednesday." Um, and I was like, "Okay, yeah, I want to play a game. That'd be fun, sure." But then it stopped being fun, and I just got stressed out that I wasn't the best player, and I was losing. The team were like losing because of me, and etc. etc. And I hate losing with a passion, like more than anything. And we were a really good team in terms of like we had two or three amazing players, but a volleyball team isn't just two or three players, it's like five or six, I think. I can't remember now, but it's more than it's six. Yeah, it's six, and it's more than, you know, the other three, which was part of that was me, were letting them down, and it was just it wasn't it was still a good experience, but I really lost the enjoyment when I actually started to play competitively against other unis. um, and I can imagine playing squash with a bunch of mates is fine. But if you were to play it against another uni for like a genuine tournament or whatever, then it would probably become less fun, I suppose.
Yeah, yeah, I get what you mean. Like, it's one of those ones where it's like the minute competition's involved, you never want to lose,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
unless it's for charity. That's one thing I learned. I was literally in a charity volleyball competition the other week, and it did not bother me that we came dead last. Like, it
Yeah,
just didn't.
yeah. It's all for a good cause, isn't it?
Well, it was interesting. The minute we started getting points on one of the teams, they started introducing more rules.
Ah,
Not
yeah.
so sure I agree with it, but
It is what it is.
hmm.
That's funny. Okay, so what's the plan after Glasgow then? Are you going to do a PhD maybe?
Haha, I have actually now got a plan. Um, sort of. I'm gonna take a year out. I'm gonna hopefully do 6 months working, 6 months traveling, and then go back for a PhD the following year.
Oh, okay. Is that in Glasgow again?
I don't know. Um, I'm not quite sure. I wanted to go to St Andrews, purely because St Andrews have really nice robes for PhD students. It's like a nice electric blue.
I
Uh,
was I thought you said then um firstly, I realized now that you said robes, but when you first said that, I thought you said roads, as in like what cars drive on, and I thought you were gonna say St Andrews has really nice roads, and I was like, what are you on about? St Andrews has really nice roads, but robes with electric blue sounds more appealing. I'll let you off.
but also St Andrews. I don't even think St Andrews has roads. They don't even have a train station. Ugh.
Well, that's not good for you. You don't even have a car.
Ah, right. Let's leave that one out. Right. That's a low blow. All right. Just because it broke down at Birmingham, leave me alone. We were so close.
Oh, the worst place as well.
Could have pushed it the 100 odd miles left. Um,
That's what you get for buying old bangers.
that was a good car. I hated that car so much.
Mm.
Um, well, no, because it was. I can't remember what. Yeah, so I was just like, I'll do. Yeah, we went to a talk. Well, my friends went to a talk at Glasgow about PhD applications and such. Um, I was too hungover to go, um, because it was on a Monday. Therefore, I'd been out on Sunday. Um, and the advice the uni gave was take a year out, go do something else, and then apply because it will make your application look better.
Okay, cool.
And because I really wanted to just like carry on because I'm adamant that if I don't do my PhD before I'm 30, I won't do it until I'm about 50.
Yeah.
Because I think what if once you hit, I think when you're doing something like history, once you hit 30, you're in the career. Like you can obviously change your career, but you're not going to stop to go and do a PhD at that point because you're probably
Yeah.
either halfway up the ladder or looking at other options.
Yeah, yeah. Fair enough.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I want to do a PhD. I want to become a lecturer with like elbow pads and a kilt just permanently.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. I'd probably come to one of your lectures and try and mess it up as much as I could.
Yeah, like I wouldn't beat you to it.
Okay, so you mentioned travel there. I've got another guest coming on soon, hopefully talking about travel, but no harm in you talking about it as well. So where would you got any plans on where you want to go in your year off?
Well, I've never really like traveled much. I've never left Europe, and I always kind of wanted to.
Yeah.
Uh, I obviously want to go to the States. I hear West Virginia is quite nice. Um, and I just take Europe because it occurred to me that I'd been in education since I was like 4 or 5. So
Yeah.
it's been what like almost 17 years ish, and I was like I could use a break, and I've always wanted to go to like the Pacific and such, somewhere warm, um, just to see what it's like. That's why I'd like to go to the States. I just kind of like to experience like a variety of different cultures because obviously British culture is very unique. But I've always wanted to go and learn to like surf and scuba dive and such,
Yeah. Yeah.
but somewhere warm.
Yeah. Well, the States sounds good. I mean, pretty sure West Virginia is not near the coast and probably quite cold. Um, but I've just looked it up, and apparently John Denver died in Monterey, California, which is near the coast and is very warm. So
Yeah,
you
I
could
might
probably
I
try and
might take some country roads there.
you could probably try and find his grave or something. Uh,
Give them a wee tribute.
oh dear. Yeah. So okay, cool. What about if we thought like Australia type area?
I did think that, but then I don't like snakes. I'm not sure why. I'm just not a massive fan of snakes.
Well, I know I knew that. It's just that like Australia isn't just one big pile of snakes. Like there's whole cities that don't have any snakes in. I'm assuming.
Yeah, I mean, I always kind of wanted to hit like the Philippines, um, places like Gili and Bali. But I think my grandpa used to be worked in ships back in the good old days. So he loves to tell the story of how he used to have his home port in Singapore, and he'd go up and down the coast of Australia from Singapore,
Yeah.
uh, and just he would just love to tell stories about how they spent like 2 weeks in Sydney, just going out and seeing things, and then they'd go up to Darwin at the top and drop stuff off. And he used to, I always wanted to travel, and he always, every time I see him, he always asks, any of my grandsons gonna go out and sail the seas and such.
Yeah.
Uh, so I think yeah, he's probably one of. I'd probably go to Australia purely because he's talked so much about it. I feel like I should go now,
Yeah.
but I don't like because obviously I lived in London, not far from you. Obviously I'm now in Glasgow. I'm kind of like I'd like to go out and see like wilderness rather than urban areas,
Yeah.
just because I think it's as much as Sydney would be amazing and Canberra and places. I think it'd be like island hopping would be nice, just like looking at stuff that's like untouched.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, if you're going to be doing that, then you probably will encounter some snakes.
Yeah, I suspect so.
And to be fair, half of them in Australia are extremely venomous, so that'll be fun.
Thank you.
Um,
Now I'm definitely gonna book my ticket now.
yeah, I mean, I always I was watching the final of I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here recently, and one of the challenges was I don't know why I was watching it. I wanted to watch the whole season, but I just never got around to it. And then it was just on the TV, so I just kept watching it a couple of days ago, and I think it was Roman Kemp or someone got put in this like under the ground in like basically he was in a coffin under the ground, but then they poured loads of snakes on top of him.
Oh god.
And then and I can imagine like him,
Everyone would starve.
he was properly freaking out, and I can imagine you'd be the same. But I was thinking to myself, I'd probably be lying there going, "So, Ant and Deck, what kind of snakes have you got in here?" And they were saying, "Oh, you've got some jungle pythons, and then you've got some water pythons." And I'd be like, "Oh, cool. Can I like? Are they all friendly?" And then Deck at the end was like, "Oh, you got like 50 snakes in there with you," and I was like, "That's the dream. That's sick." But then someone like you's probably a bit more like, "Well, that's the worst thing I could ever imagine."
Well, I feel like if I were on I'm a Celebrity, I feel like I would have to pretend I was completely fine with it just to maintain a reputation. Um, but I don't know why I'm not a fan of snakes. I'm just not.
Are you scared of any other animals?
No, not really. Just I'm not a fan of snakes and spiders, which is obviously but it's not like a fear. Like I've held tarantulas. I've been near your biscuit. Like obviously I saw Hayden's massive snakes as well, but it was one of the ones which like I'm not like terrified of them. I just don't like them.
Yeah, you were very on edge when I took mine out.
It's like Brussels sprouts. Some people like them, some people don't. But either way, I don't want to share a room with them.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. I mean, yeah, I can. I think Australia's probably not the best bet, but there are snakes all over the world. Like, if you want to go island hopping, then Asia's probably a good bet. But there are loads of snakes in Asia as well.
The
So
one thing about the Philippines and such, just the Pacific generally, is historically there's just an inordinate amount of things you can see there as well. So you've got like shipwrecks, plane wrecks, and stuff like that. And it's one of those ones where it's always like you can sit in a room in a library and read books and look at pictures, but I think it's a different experience when you're there.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, maybe you could make your PhD into a traveling thing. So for your PhD, you go to these exotic countries and look at stuff.
Well, as one of my lecturers does that. So he's you. I don't know if you'd recognize his name. But it's called Tony Pollard. And he had been on a few. He's been on a few time teams.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Time team were big. He's done. He had a BBC series called Two Men in a Trench. I'd never heard of it, but apparently it was quite good. And he does like it's like abandoned megastructures or something.
Oh,
And
sick.
he posts about it on his Twitter. And he was in Guam last year filming for this because there's apparently a massive Japanese abandoned megastructure out there. And he goes all over the world and does these TV shows about these places and such. And it's like that's kind of the dream, like to be recognized enough to go out to all these places and actually see it rather than just reading about it.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Yeah, that sounds like a sick job.
He's also one of the best lecturers I've had. Like, he it's because I never liked archaeology when I was in Bangor because I didn't like the referencing system, and it was they were never. Yeah, like I was never a massive fan just because they didn't cover topics I was interested in.
Yeah.
But we had obviously I have two lectures. I used to have two lectures a week, 2 hours on a Tuesday, 2 hours on a Thursday. And we turned up to this Thursday lecture with Tony Pollard, and he's like, right, I've got an hour and a half presentation on the archaeology of the Battle of Culloden, which is 1745, which is a battle up somewhere in Scotland. Nothing really happens. And he's just showing you pictures of stuff, and it's the stories he can tell you from what he's showing you.
Yeah.
It's incredible. So he has like a musket ball that's almost split in two, and he asked, what do you think happens to this musket ball? And obviously you think, oh, it's hit someone, it's hit a rock or something. He turned around and he was like, this musket ball has hit the edge of a sword.
No way.
Yeah, so he was like, we can tell from this musket that someone has literally been charging at the rifleman and he's fired and it's clipped the sword. And
That's mad.
he then shows a picture which is of the on an old school Brown Bess rifle. You used to have like a trigger guard, and he put it up there and he was like, this was like the most exciting thing we found. And he was like, the reason is because someone has chopped a section of the trigger guard off. And he was like, this means that someone has charged and brought a sword down, and the man with the rifle has held it up to block the sword.
Yeah.
And he's like, so you go from looking at a battlefield to when you start getting the archaeology, like he goes out and finds and puts into these presentations, you start getting it's not just a field, it becomes more real. Like
Yeah.
you can turn around and be like, this person held a rifle up to block a sword blow.
Yeah.
That's pretty astounding.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's so cool. Okay, so I have a question about archaeology actually, because you can do courses that aren't to do with. You can just do purely archaeology courses, can't you?
Yeah, you can.
So history and archaeology are, you need archaeology to find the history. I'm guessing, but the two aren't like if you do a history degree, you're not just going to become an archaeologist, that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's quite strange. Like then they even though they're extremely linked, like you can't really have one without the other because they tie in together so much. You don't have to do them together. So I think I took 2 archaeology modules in my first year and never touched it again. So I think I was originally on a history and archaeology degree, and then I graduated with pure history just because I dropped archaeology.
Okay. Yeah.
And then you get some people. So I met a group of Americans at Glasgow, and all of them are studying conflict archaeology. That's their masters.
Oh,
So
cool.
literally looking at, so instead of being like Time Team where they dig up Roman coins, they look at British battlefields, the evolution of weapons and such from the evidence you get in the ground.
Yeah.
So in hindsight, I reckon archaeology is probably a more rounded subject than history, because you dig the pieces up and then learn the history, whereas with history, you just learn the history.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really cool. That's awesome. I've always, from a young age, I had an interest in archaeology. I used to go to the coast and find fossils and stuff. I've still got loads upstairs, actually. It's really cool. But I haven't really pursued that in any way. Is archaeology not? You said you dropped the modules. Is that not something that you were that interested in?
At the time, I wasn't, but I think it's the same with everyone, which is when it's a topic that you're not a massive fan of, you just disengage. So I think I was looking at a really weird. I took an archaeology module which was called History and Heritage. I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure it was an archaeology module, and it was like museum studies. So it was looking at whether or not museums should return artifacts and stuff, and obviously that's really important and interesting, but it's not my cup of tea.
Yeah.
Like I'm yeah, like it's just not something that I was particularly interested in. And I was just, and obviously I was 18, so I was a mouthy little bugger at that point who was walking around pretending I was the dog's bollocks and just like, you know what it's like when you're a fresh-faced 18-year-old. If you don't want to do something, you're not going to do it. So I picked all history modules, and now I'm having to send emails begging a lecturer to put me onto an archaeology module because it looks interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really cool. I mean, I've always thought it'd be quite cool to be an archaeologist as a job, because, like you say, you're literally turning around and seeing and digging up history, like literally digging up history, sort of thing. So, yeah, it just seems cool. Okay, cool. Let's think. I told you this is unscripted. I've kind of hit a rut in terms of things to say. Yeah, I guess it's interesting in terms of the way that you the route you went down. Like, what's your earliest memory of seeing something historical and being like, that's really interesting?
Oh God, my mum loves this story. She tells. I think anytime she ever. I think obviously I was in London to watch the NFL with Jack Bird and Alex King.
Yeah.
And they obviously got to meet my mum, and I'm pretty sure she told this story then. She did. I reckon at my wedding, my mum will somehow manage to wrangle a speech and tell this story. Because I don't know why, but I must have been. I was about 8, 9, or 10. Like, I was relatively young, and we were at Duxford, which is obviously the Imperial War Museum's airfield down in Cambridge Way.
Okay.
And my mum loves to tell this because it was me right at the front of a fence in the prop blast of a Spitfire. And I was apparently just loving every second of it. Just like having to hang to this fence for dear life while I'm getting blown away from a plane right in front of me. And I think that probably triggered it. I think that would have been where it really kicked off. Because I always sort of liked history, but I think it was because I was obviously in Scouts as well. So I was in Sea Scouts, which that's obviously got a basis with like the Navy and such. And then just from planes and such, it just sort of spiraled.
Yeah.
And then playing a ridiculous amount of Xbox games doesn't help. That just, no. That's what my masters has really become now.
Yeah. Do you play games that are like there's a new Call of Duty Modern Warfare up I think the campaign is about World War II or something? Do you like games like that? Do you like look at the historical relevance of some of the games, stuff like that?
I was saying this to a friend of mine called Beth earlier. I was which is it's become like you get resurgence in history for some reason. So this year was the 75th anniversary of D-Day.
Yeah.
And Guy Martin, who, if you've never seen a Guy Martin documentary, go watch a Guy Martin documentary because he's just so entertaining. He's
so funny. Yeah.
He's just incredibly northern, like he's smart, but he's just northern and entertaining. And he did one about D-Day, and they've re-released a whole load of new books. And I recently bought a book about D-Day as well. And you seem to get resurgences in periods of history, and video games seem to be cashing in on it. So obviously Battlefield 5 came out last year, and
Yeah.
that's about that's a World War II one. And then recently they released like the online multiplayer now has access to stuff from the Pacific campaign, and I quite like video games. Everyone has the argument of violent video games affect children and their well-being, but I think if they are done well, they can teach them history in a way that you can't do in a classroom.
Yeah.
Because my course is part of Glasgow's Wargaming Initiative now, which is we're going to spend a week next semester doing a full-on war game. I don't know what topic yet, but they're going to split us into two groups, and we are going to basically fight each other on paper, just like they would have done during the Second World War, First World War, and such.
Okay.
Just to try and figure out tactics and such. And this is a new thing that Glasgow Uni's doing, and it's interactive. So it's us interacting and having to adapt the same way you'd have to in an actual war zone.
Wow.
And it's like military grade. The guy who's doing it's apparently done war gaming with like the Polish army, and such. And he's bringing it to Glasgow, and he's eccentric, but he's a really interesting guy.
Yeah. That's such a cool idea.
Yeah, I always wanted, it just seems so interesting to do it. And when they were like, yeah, we're going to run one for you guys, and we're going to basically you're going to take a week off lectures, and you'll be in 9 to 5, hypothetically fighting a war with each other.
That's sick. That's so cool. That's such a good idea.
Where it's going to be like chess, but when you get to a bridge, you have to figure out how to cross the bridge and how many units you'll move and such. And it's incredibly detailed.
That's so cool. So do you think you're going to come out of it and go, wow, I didn't realize I was such a massive control freak, or I should have probably been a bit more wary of other people, stuff like that? Isn't it going to like change your perception of yourself?
I think it will. One of the guys in my lecture the other day, we were having a conversation about something, and one of the guys in my lecture is an ex-army, he's an ex-US Marine, and he got a bit irritated with one of my course mates.
Yeah.
And he was like, he basically did, "You don't know, man, you weren't there." Just was a bit like, you've never been in conflict, you don't quite understand what it's like. And the lecturer intervened and was like, well, I've never been in conflict, but I can still tell you what it's like. But I think he almost had a point. Like, you can't criticize if you weren't there, is how I would see it.
Yeah.
So I think it would be interesting, because I've always wondered how I would react in situations under pressure like that. I think it will be a real learning curve for me, as well as everyone else, just to see how we all react, because it'll be a new situation for most of us.
Yeah.
Not the ex-army guys, obviously, but those of us who are 21, 22 and think we know everything.
Well, no, I think even for them, because if they were on the battlefield, it's different to being kind of the general who's overseeing and moving people around.
Yeah. There's always that, and it was described to us as operational art, which is how do you fight a battle somewhere else to win the battle right in front of you.
Yeah.
The idea of it was really interesting, because that's what we sort of look at that during our course, which is how different battles have had different impacts depending on how people have responded, and then you obviously get a lot of what ifs.
Yeah.
He loves a good hypothetical.
Yeah. I mean, I was thinking there's that book that I first heard about, because there's a really funny program on one of the BBC channels. I don't know if it's still available. It's called Bluestone 42.
Oh, I love Bluestone.
Yeah, it's so funny, and it's part of it. There's a couple of episodes where the book by Sun Tzu, The Art of War, is brought up, and it's such a. I've always wanted to read that book because it seems really. It's like the Japanese proverb or something like that, and it's really just the quotes that I've seen from that book have been really interesting, and I've always wanted to read it. But I can imagine a situation like you're in, when you're trying to, move different people around and win a battle when you can't, necessarily control it, etc., etc. It's probably really useful to read a book like that because that's literally all it's about.
Yeah, I've never read it myself, because I just never have. Not really sure why. I really should do because it's one of those ones where like I'm on my course. I'd say I'm probably one of the least well versed in military history.
Yeah,
Which is quite weird because I always thought I was like on the ball with it, but honestly, it was really interesting to see just how bright some other people are because depending on what, not in like a horrible way, but it's like depending on which period you focus on, really affects how you view conflict. So
yeah,
like one of my course mates is a massive fan of the Napoleonic wars and the Duke of Wellington, and he actually got a Duke of Wellington keychain for Secret Santa because he in every lecture, it doesn't matter what topic it is, somehow he manages to get a Napoleonic War reference in. I don't know
that's
how he
so
does it.
funny.
I just and he can somehow connect it all back to the Napoleonic War, and it's the same way. We've got an ex British Army colonel who's ex artillery, and he can relate it to himself and how he's dealt with situations.
That's so cool.
And it's like you relate back to what you know, which I think is where it will get really interesting because depending on who's on what side, you'll get different styles of.
Yeah, yeah. It must be really interesting to talk to people like that on your course that are just, a really eclectic mix of people that have had so many experiences.
Yeah, actually, it really is. Because obviously we all sort of met at the start of the year, and we were all a bit. The first lecture we had, in hindsight, was really well done.
Yeah.
Because we all had to do reading on a topic that I can't remember off the top of my head, and just come in and have a 2 hour discussion.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's really like in hindsight, it's actually quite daunting to think that you're just gonna walk into a room of
Yeah.
15, 16 people you don't know, have a half-hour introduction, and then just fight each other.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. So,
And yeah, and you were doing it, and it was people were touching backs. There's one lad who's a big fan of the RAF, and he was using that comparison. There are two girls who focus on genocide, and they were relating it to what they knew. Um, I was relating it to what I focus on, and obviously the guy who loves Napoleon and Wellington focused it on what he was. And it's
yeah.
interesting the way that what I say about the Second World War, First World War, Vietnam can be related back to what happened with Waterloo in 1815 and such.
Yeah. So are your interests the world wars and Vietnam and things like that?
Yeah, I prefer modern conflict.
Yeah.
It's
And what's the kind of reason behind that?
bigger.
Okay.
It's the technological advance. Some of the things that we've the further you into the modern age you get, the more technologically advanced you become. And obviously, it's incredible now with drones and such. But it's like during the Second World War and the First World War, and after that, some of the ways in which things were created is just incredible.
Yeah.
Like if you look at if you look at the dam busters, which
I
is
was going to say that as well. Oh my god.
yes. So this what the reason it came to mind is actually because I've brought because obviously I'm in Bangor at the moment and I brought my Xbox with me, and I forgot that when I was in Glasgow, I got really drunk and put a film on, and forgot I'd left the film in the Xbox. So it was the Dam Busters because apparently that's what I watch when I'm drunk, um, and it was one of those ones where it's like it's in normal in a normal situation you would never have tried to figure out how to blow up a dam by bouncing a bomb at it. You just it's not something that ever crossed your mind.
Yeah.
And yet, in times of war, people do some incredible things.
Yeah.
There's one there's a whole lot of tanks from around the D-Day period called Hogarth's Funnies, and I believe it was him. He figured out that you could float a tank.
Wow.
He figured out so you had yeah, so you basically you had a tank and you had a rubber, basically like three rubber rings stacked on top of this tank, and a tank will float. So we attached a propeller to it, and they literally were driving tanks up the beaches that were
That's
just
so
sinking.
funny.
and coming up with things like that. And it's like the ingenuity that goes behind it, I think, is really interesting. That's why I focus on it. I like the way that it's things that you just wouldn't think of normally, and someone comes up with a way to do it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I can feel what you're saying about watching something when you're drunk, because I remember a story. Me and my brother from another mother, Joe Short, we lived together for 3 years at uni, and he told me that he tried to watch Pulp Fiction like 7 times. Every time me and him got really drunk, we'd come home, we'd go into our rooms, and we'd both try and watch Pulp Fiction, but we both kept falling asleep or wake up next morning and totally forget everything that happened. And it was ridiculous the amount of times that we tried to watch Pulp Fiction and never did because we were just too drunk. And I remember I remember I eventually watched it. I was like, I didn't actually like that. I didn't like, controversial opinion. I didn't actually like Pulp Fiction that much. Like, I thought it was a good film, but I think it was a bit too long for me.
I agree. I think that's the point. It's one of the ones where it's good. It is a good film, but everyone raves about it so much that it's now overrated.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, because everyone was saying for a long time how good Pulp Fiction was and that I need to watch it. So I tried, and I tried, and I tried, and I tried, and eventually I did watch it when I was sober, and I was like, I'm not actually enjoying it that much. It is a good film, and it's got some really great bits in it, like quotes and stuff, but overall, I wasn't like massively, this is the best film ever type thing.
You're going to lose a lot of followers for that opinion.
Yeah, I just hope people understand that I'm just being me, and that is all I can do. So anyway, how about in terms of where you think, because you're more interested in the modern and the technological advancements of war, where do you think it's going in the future?
I'm not sure. I, it's like one of my shower thoughts. I'm not really sure where I think that's going. I think if you get to the point where it becomes too dehumanized, so like drones, for example, you can blow someone up while sitting. It's like Jack Ryan on Amazon Prime shows people in uh, Las Vegas using drones in Iraq, and it's like that's you're taking the human aspect out, which obviously is to save lives, but it also dehumanizes war in a sense. And it's yes, it's good that you're taking people out of it, but I think if you get to the point where it becomes all mechanized, you lose sight of what you're doing.
Yeah. Hmm. Okay.
Because the meaning of war, the why wars happen has changed significantly. It used to be because you didn't like the people on the other side of a hill. Then you didn't like the people on the other side of a line of a map.
Yeah.
Then you didn't like the people who'd taken over your country. So it was like you go to insurgency and counterinsurgency.
Yeah.
And then you've moved on to it's insurgency and counterinsurgency, but cross map, which is really quite strange. Like you've gone from I know this because I'm supposed to do a presentation on it. It got cancelled, so I'm doing it in January. But I had to watch a film from the 1960s called The Battle of Algiers, which is
Okay.
like an objective view on the French. It was basically Algerian men who were fighting against French colonialists post
Okay.
Second World War.
Yeah.
And the film itself is something like one of the it's on IMDb's top 100. It's one of Rotten Tomatoes' highest rated films
Wow.
because it's just an objective view, and so it shows both the atrocities committed by both sides. It doesn't really take a side, and it's really like well done. And then it's so well done that it was used in a court case in 1967, which was accused 1969 to 1971, accusing members of the Black Panther organization in America of using the film as a training video.
Jesus.
The IRA used it as a training video, and the CIA in 2003 used it to inform their ground commanders in Iraq of how they may. It was to stimulate a conversation on how they may defeat these counterinsurgents, these insurgents. And it's like this is a film from the 1960s that's about something that happens in the 1950s that's apparently still relevant in 2003.
That's so cool. That's so weird. That's crazy.
Well, I can believe it. So because I went to my tutor and she was like, "You're the last person to come and get a presentation topic." this is the one topic that no one's really looked at. She gave it to me, and I was like, oh, well, how much can there be to say about a movie? A lot. Like, I was like, for Christ's sake. I was like, this is not fair, because the minute I started looking at it, I was like, a lot of it's speculation, but then it's like a lot of it's like ridiculously detailed, and it's like, Christ, I've actually seemed to have picked the hard topic here.
Yeah,
Who'd have thought watching a movie was going to bite me in the ass?
that's so funny. Oh dear. Well, that's what you get for being late then.
I mean, I wasn't late. I had, yeah.
You were late. You were just late. That's just what happened.
It's more complicated than that. Obviously, because Bangor's online system for like finding courses and modules and stuff is different to Glasgow. So Glasgow uses Moodle, and I don't understand Moodle. I don't like it. I just don't like it. So it would be someone will post on Moodle, and then like an hour later, I'll get an email telling me that someone's posted on Moodle,
Right.
and then you've got to figure out how to submit stuff. And Glasgow Uni doesn't even use Turnitin yet.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, they use like Urktund or something, but that's leaving in 2020. I don't even know what the hell it is. I have to like upload something to Moodle to then send it to some are Turnitin, some are not Turnitin, and then it's not like Turnitin as we know it from Bangor. It's like a different Turnitin, so you can't see similarity. And then like it's horrible. Don't do it. Just I can't even. And it's a running joke in my course that there are people that are 55 that can work Moodle better than me.
I mean, yeah, that is how it sounds currently. To be fair,
It is. I hate it. It's horrible. I miss typewriters.
that's so funny. Okay, cool. All right. Well, unless you have any questions, I have pretty much run out, and we've just hit. Well, we're hour and 12, so that's nice. That's good. So yeah, I guess all that's left to say is, do you have any shout outs?
Shout out. Oof. Shout out to Alex King, Little Bay. Kurt Sumner, I know where you work now. That's probably it, to be fair.
Okay, cool. Sweet. Well, thank you so much for coming on such short notice. Pardon?
Cheers for having me.
Oh, that's all right. Thank you for coming on. I was going to do just a solo episode of just me talking about something. I hadn't really thought what I was going to talk about yet, but it's good to get someone on. I think I prefer to have someone to talk to rather than just me. Although I keep getting told that people want to hear more solo episodes, so I don't know how that's going to go. I probably will do a solo episode soon, just not kind of unless I think I'll do solo episodes when I absolutely can't get a guest, and you are my saving grace tonight because I'm going to post this tomorrow. So yeah, cool.
Oh, thank Christ you didn't do the hair straightener story then.
No, we should have though. It would be really funny.
I don't should have. I reckon I'm like if you post this, I reckon I'm gonna get a lot of messages asking about hair straighteners.
I mean, yeah. So for anyone listening, do please message Peter Aiken, Aiken spelt Aikaen, and just ask him about hair straighteners because he has a really good story about them. So yeah, you're welcome. You're so welcome.
If I get messages from this, I'm gonna report you.
get my podcast taken down.
Yeah, if you think I won't.
Oh dear. Can you report stuff on like Spotify and Apple and stuff?
Honestly, do I look like I understand technology?
Well, yeah, you clearly don't understand it at all. I'm just going to try and check on Spotify. I hope we can't because I don't want to give anyone any ideas at this point.
10 years, someone will find that podcast and be like, I'm going to find the straightener story.
Yeah. Okay, cool. All right, well, yeah, perfect. Thank you so much for coming on. I really, really appreciate it. I hope everyone listening has had a enjoyable time talking about war studies and other things. And yeah, I will talk to you all next Wednesday, hopefully. And hopefully I'll have another guest. Otherwise, it should be a solo episode. And we'll go from there. On that note, just quickly before I leave you all, if you do want to be a guest, like Pete did actually, just message me and I'll be more than willing to talk to you about anything you want, really. Like even if Pete messaged me and I said, what do you want to talk about? And he was like, I don't know. So even if it's just nothing, then I'm sure we will find something to talk about. So yeah, give me a message and we'll see where it goes. Cool. All right, thanks guys. We'll see you all soon.